This is a lump of radioactive stuff. And this is a thing that contains some, even more radioactive stuff. And finally, we have this, even bigger lump, that contains lots of different kinds of radioactive stuff. And this thing is a very cheap and pretty nasty Geiger counter. It can certainly tell me that there is some radioactive stuff here. And it can even tell me roughly how radioactive this stuff is. But as far as this rather simple detector is concerned, this is all just stuff. It has absolutely no idea what you are pointing it at, and as you will see later, that information is kind of important. This is the Radiacode 110. It is a gamma-ray spectrometer, and it doesn't do stuff. What it does instead is tell you the exact isotopes you are pointing it at, even if there are lots of different types in the sample. And, despite its small size, the Radiacode 110 is about 100 times more sensitive than that rather popular Geiger counter that you just saw. Today, we are going to test the crap out of this little thing, and show you, warts and all, how it performs. First of all, I need to disclose that this product was sent to us for the purposes of reviewing. Once again, the Radiacode company offered us a sponsorship. And, once again we politely declined. Instead we have asked them to donate the equivalent sum to a children's charity in their location. We will talk more about this later. We will not accept any editorial restrictions on our reviews, and frankly, this is a hobby channel, and those kids are a lot more deserving of the money than we'll ever be. So today, we are going to run this thing through our usual barrage of tests. We are going to check the claims that are made in the specifications, and we are also going to compare it to some of the other models that this company makes. This is by no means the first Radiacode device we have reviewed, so we were utterly amazed that this company wanted us to review another of their products. On this channel, we have been pretty critical about the aesthetics of Radiacode products. And somehow, they thought it would be a good idea to send us an even uglier product to review. Ho-hum. And keep watching until the end, there is a discount code for this product, that gives you 10% off the list price. Right, let's crack on and test the crap out of this tiny gamma-ray spectrometer. This little device is called a gamma-ray spectrometer. To some people, that might be somewhat of an intimidating title, in which case, you can just call this thing a tricorder. And, basically that's exactly what this thing is, it's a bloody tricorder for radioactive stuff. Let's face it, most of us, at one time or another, have dreamed of owning a real-life tricorder. So now, not even a fully armed Klingon battle fleet can stand between you and your childhood dreams. At least, that's how my human assistant sees it. Right, let me give you the very briefest of explanations of how this thing works. This thing works like a prism, but instead of separating light into different colors, it separates gamma rays into their energy levels. Once we have collected a spectrum from the sample, the device can then search through it for the characteristic fingerprints of different radioisotope decay events. And the Radiacode device has a huge built-in library of these isotope fingerprints. And then there is the secondary advantage of this type of device, the high sensitivity. Traditional Geiger counters use Geiger Muller tubes that are filled with a mixture of gases. The Radiacode uses a scintillation crystal, which is a solid lump. Put simply, there is just much higher probability that a gamma ray will interact with a solid than a gas. To make this little thing work correctly, there is a lot of firmware and software required. One of the best things about this little device is the smartphone application, and it is easily the best one of any device we have seen. It also has a great feature that allows you to build up a radiation map of your local environment. This is one of those features best described as highly addictive. And then there is the Windows application. Well, it does sort of work. It's a bit clunky, and a bit disappointing, given how good the smartphone app is. We have kind of gotten used to its little idiosyncrasies, and we do use it more than we use the smartphone application, so it can't be that bad. Right, enough of the small talk. Let's get on and do something fun. Let's test this thing with some real sources of radiation, and see how it actually performs. Right, we are going to start with some fairly basic tests of this rather interesting little device. Here, you can see the smartphone app, which is currently in search mode. Essentially, it is just behaving like a highly sensitive Geiger counter, but, don't be fooled, under the hood, it is still collecting the important spectral data. Okay, let's expose this to a test source, and see if this thing can correctly identify the radioisotope. This is a sealed test disc that contains a very small amount of cesium-137. This is actually a very weak source, but nevertheless, it is very useful, as this radioisotope is often used as the calibration standard for equipment like this. Looking at the Windows application, we can see a very sharp peak that perfectly corresponds to the energy signature of cesium-137. Zooming in, you can see that the software has correctly identified this radioisotope. This is a tiny button that contains 230 nanograms of americium-241. This isotope principally undergoes an alpha decay, but occasionally, there is a low-energy gamma ray emitted as well. We are going to use the Radiacode to identify this material, based upon this gamma energy signature. In the smartphone app, you can already see some peaks appearing, and these peaks are characteristic for this isotope. Personally, we prefer to do our data analysis in the PC application, but I guess that is just a feature of the mindset of people at the age of my human assistant. As you can see, these peaks have been correctly identified as being from americium-241. This specimen contains a small amount of thorium-232. It is part of one of those bullshit positive ion pendants. This isotope is an almost perfect alpha emitter, and alpha particles are not detectable by this type of instrument. Instead, the presence of thorium-232 can be confirmed by identifying some of the other isotopes within its decay chain. It's sort of like matching a fingerprint to find the villain. And once again, the Radiacode is able to identify the isotope, but this time via its decay chain. This is the pointer from an old Soviet military compass, and it contains some radium-226. The Radiacode makes pretty short work of identifying this isotope. Once again, we are needing to identify it from its decay chain, which has a characteristic fingerprint. Here, you can see that the application has highlighted the principal decay emission energies, which is essentially the fingerprint of radium-226. And here you can see the confirmation of the isotope. This is a lump of uranium ore. We found it on a family trip to a disused uranium mine. I'm not sure what normal families do at the weekend, but my human assistant does some pretty wacky shit. The uranium that we find on Earth is about 4.6 billion years old, older than the Earth itself. And, Just over half of the uranium-238 that was originally here, has already decayed to other radionuclides. This is the decay chain for uranium-238, the eagle-eyed amongst you, might have noticed that the later part of this chain is the same as that of radium. So, does this confuse the Radiacode device? Not at all, it can indeed identify that this rock contains uranium. Now, we are going to run a quick check on the two key specifications that are published by the manufacturer. The key benefit that this device offers over the other products in the range is its very high sensitivity. Here this is specified using a cesium-137 source, so we should be able to test that claim. The other important specification is the device's resolution. This is a measure of how well it can discriminate between different gamma-ray energy levels. It is measured in percent, and the smaller the number, the better the performance. We are going to run this experiment in shielded conditions. We have built a little lead cave to remove some of the background radiation. Hopefully this will give us a more accurate result. We ran this experiment for about an hour. We wanted to get lots of data to average the result over. Almost immediately, you can see the strong 661 kV line start to become very obvious. As more data starts to become accumulated, the true power of this little device becomes highly evident. This truly is a nuclear physics lab that you can carry in your pocket. It is beyond the scope of this video, but you can also see features like Compton effects. Once the data is collected, you can export it as an XML file. This allows it to be imported into analysis tools, and include the energy compensation curve and the calibration coefficients. We like to use a free tool called Interspec. It was developed by the Sandia National Laboratory, and it is basically the gold standard when it comes to tasks like this. This tool can immediately tell us that the resolution of this cesium-137 photo peak is actually 8.29%, which is better than the specified 8.4%. And as for the sensitivity, if we take the counts per second measured in the cesium-137 photo peak, and then account for the measured dose rate, we get a figure of about 83 counts per second. Once again, this is slightly better than the figure given in the specifications. Right, so far so good. These little things are called beta lights. They contain a very small amount of a radioactive isotope of hydrogen, called tritium. Tritium is a weak beta emitter. The inside of these glass tubes is coated with a phosphor which will glow when beta particles strike it. These beta particles are at such low energy that none of them will be able to penetrate the glass tube, and thus be detected by our equipment. But what is detectable though, is the very faint X-rays that are produced when the beta particles strike the phosphor coating or the glass tube. This radiation is extremely hard to detect. A typical cheap Geiger counter like this one seriously struggles to make any detection at all. This little HTT60 only sees a small increase above the background level. So, let's just take a quick look through our small collection of Geiger counters, and see how they perform when trying to detect this source of very low-level radiation. Some of these devices can obtain a weak detection, but most give no reaction at all. What a surprise, the bloody Gamma Scout cannot detect this source. This overpriced piece of shit appears to have been specifically designed to disappoint its owners at every possible opportunity. One of these days, I'm going to blow this damn thing to bits. Oh, I nearly forgot, we did that already. Anyway, enough of our happy memories, let's try and detect this tritium with this enormous Geiger-Müller tube. We built this huge detector from a 3-inch pancake tube, and it is very sensitive. It detects a level that is about double that of the background rate. Anyway, the point is that this is a very difficult source to detect, and these simple Geiger counters are not really up to the task. But it does mean that these tritium vials are a very suitable source to test the sensitivity of the little Radiacode device. Right, let's take a look at the Radiacode 102 first. This is the base model, and it does indeed detect this very low energy X-ray radiation, and it's about the same as that massive pancake probe. Now, let's take a look at the Radiacode 103G. This has a completely different type of scintillation crystal inside it, and it doesn't detect anything from these vials. I guess that is the price that is paid for having such good resolution. And now, it's finally the turn of the Radiacode 110. This thing just blows everything else out of the water. Its low energy sensitivity is frankly amazing. This thing gets about 12 or 13 times more counts than the background rate. Put another way, it's like having 6 or 7 of those massive pancake detectors, stuffed inside the little Radiacode device. Impressive. Sadly, what it cannot do, is resolve the low energy X-rays to allow us to see the X-ray fluorescence emissions. I guess that's why X-ray spectrometers always cost a king's ransom. And for a final experiment, let's take a little look how this thing reacts to a soft X-ray generator. This X-ray emitter has an applied voltage of just 11 kilovolts. Here, we are comparing the response of the Radiacode 102 to the 110. Well, that was unexpected. I guess the klaxon effect is a new feature in the latest app. What is interesting, is that the energy peak is shown to be at a much higher energy than it is in reality. All of our gamma-ray spectrometers have this issue when measuring this source, and we think it is due to the scintillation crystal becoming saturated. The X-ray photons that are emitted by this source might be low energy, but there is an absolute shit ton of them. Right, it's time to have a conversation about the aesthetic qualities of this product. Which, clearly won't take very long. On this channel, we have been a bit scathing about the aesthetics of the Radiacode product range. And, somehow they managed to make this device even uglier than its predecessors. We have compared the design language of the Radiacode products to that of blood glucose monitors. In other words, as dull as dishwater, and having a design lacking any remotely interesting details. It is a device that is trying hard not to stand out. I know that there are some folk that actually like this design. So I guess, beauty is indeed, in the eye of the beholder. We want to thank the Radiacode company for sending us this wonderful key ring. But, it has presented us with a bit of a dilemma. All 3 of my human assistant's kids wanted it for themselves, and not wanting to choose favorites, we decided to have a competition. So, we asked them to produce some new designs for Radiacode products, and we will let the viewers decide which one of them is most deserving of this prize. And now, I have great pleasure to present to you their wonderful creations. Our first young artist has submitted 4 works for your consideration. This wonderful effort has undertones of the HFS 10, but in spite of that, this designer seems confident that he can win the prize. This one is more of a preliminary sketch, but clearly shows a nice analog display. And here we have the designer, showing us his artistic range. This is a Picasso-themed concept. And finally, we have this rather minimalist work, this time featuring a dual analog and digital display. Our second young designer has focused on the functionality. This idea has two displays, and the keys are in the shape of the Radiacode logo, and the concept comes with a selfie stick. And here, she has added some more details to the selfie stick idea. Her concept calls for a waterproof enclosure. And, our last young designer has created some rather unusual ideas. This first one is a minimalist sketch of a device that uses a thumb wheel to control the mode, rather like a camera. And this one has a concertina-type extension piece to move the sensor closer to the sample. It's a sort of a built-in mini selfie stick. This one uses a telescopic selfie stick approach, and includes the thumb wheel idea. And finally, there is a more polished version of the telescopic sensor concept. Well done, young man. So, please be sure to make your way to the poll in the community section of our channel, to place your vote. Personally, I think that they are all rather smashing designs. And to be frank, none of them have the look and feel of a blood glucose monitor, so on that basis, they all get my vote. Putting the industrial design and aesthetics to one side, we did notice something else, something a bit troubling. What we noticed was quite a lot of manufacturing defects on the top side of the outer enclosure. Mostly, these appear to be tool ejection marks, something we would expect from an early revision of the tooling, but certainly not from a finished product. There were also sink marks visible too, again giving the impression of being an unfinished product development. Hi, Future Arthur here. We discussed this with the Radiacode company, and it seems that they did indeed send us a device from their junk pile of early samples. It kind of makes sense. I mean, why send a bloody YouTuber a perfect product, when a dumbass YouTuber would hardly notice the difference anyway? Okay, that's enough about the aesthetics of this product. It isn't the most beautiful device we have ever seen, but the amazing performance more than makes up for that. Sometimes, it is far too easy to forget that not so long ago, gamma-ray spectrometers were very large and expensive pieces of laboratory equipment. Just 20 years ago, such a small, low-cost, and easily accessible piece of equipment like this was simply unimaginable. My human assistant always carries a Radiacode 102 around with him in his laptop bag, but now he will be switching to this model. It's just so much better. The device does exactly what it claims it can do, and don't think that they sent us a special version with everything tweaked, because it turns out that they sent us an old pre-production unit. And then, there is the low energy sensitivity. This puts every other device we own to shame. To say it has good X-ray sensitivity is a bloody understatement. As far as we are concerned, it is the best instrument that Radiacode has produced to date. We want to express our deepest gratitude to the Radiacode company. They really got on board with our concept of sponsorship via charitable donation. They selected the Little Heroes Foundation, which is a small charity that helps with the costs of treatment and care for local children that are suffering from cancer. Like the Radiacode company, they are based in Cyprus, and this charity is an all-volunteer movement. There are no highly paid executives jetting around the world on private jets. All of the money goes to those that need it. If you wish to make a donation to this charity, there is a link in the description below. So yes, the design of the product isn't to our taste, but that certainly doesn't stop us from using it. Personally, I think this is the best entry-level spectrometer available. And if you are interested in buying one of these devices, there is a 10% discount for the Radiacode 110. Just use our channel name as the coupon code at checkout. And finally, a sneak preview on our current project. We are building a system that can see through solid metal, using a cheap webcam. So make sure you are subscribed if you want to be notified when the video is released. Anyway, that's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed our little video, or at least found some parts of it interesting. If you think we deserve it, then please feel free to give it a like. And you could always hit subscribe, if you want to see more content like this. This channel doesn't have any sponsors, at least none that actually pay us any money. But, if you want to support the channel, and help us to make videos, then you could consider dropping us a super chat or even buy me a coffee. We do hope that you managed to learn at least one new thing in this video, and that your investment in time was rewarded. Time is the only truly valuable resource we have. This is still a hobby channel, so we can say what we want, and YouTube's algorithm can go and get f***ed. Thank you for your time. You now have only a very short time to choose the next video to watch.